And in the next slide, we'll see that 90% of all data was created within the last 2 years. There is more and more information being created in shorter and shorter periods of time. So you can imagine the challenge from a personal data perspective with the massive outflow of personal data being created and used in ways that one can only imagine. Big data analysis and analytics promise new opportunities to gain invaluable insights and benefits. And I really believe that because we will have new predictive modes of analysis that can identify diseases and various symptoms and things of that nature from a health perspective in ways that could never be done before. So I think enormous benefits. But, and there's always the but, it will also enable expanded surveillance, increasing the risk of unauthorized use and disclosure on a scale previously unimaginable. And that's what the caution is. That's what the keep your foot on the brake just a little while longer is. Because if we don't embed privacy into data analytics, into big data, into the Internet of Things, we're not going to be able to control in any way how it's used or disclosed and the harm that may result from that. And you haven't seen class action lawsuits until this thing starts going. It will be dramatic and it will be very harmful. But I'm not the only one who started seeing this. About 2 years ago, in the next slide, I read Evanta Network put out this quote in an article I read about big data not being data. And they said, despite rampant interest from enterprise leaders and often sizable investments in big data technologies, many programs still stutter or fail completely. And in the next slide, Gartner did a very similar article where they talk about big data is moving from its inflated expectations to a trough of disillusionment. Wow, that was really strong. And it was interesting. The year before, I had read an article in the next slide about this data scientists conference that was being held, I believe, in Montreal. Normally, the big data scientists meet in the States or elsewhere, but it was in Canada, and there was an article written about it in the Globe and Mail. And I was really surprised by this finding that 88% of the data scientists surveyed said they were concerned about privacy. And they said consumers should worry about the privacy issues associated with big data. And these were the guys doing the data analytics, data scientists. So I did what I always do. I contacted the person in the article who was talking about it, who had been at the conference. And I explained myself. I sent an email to him. And I never assumed that they know anything about my world. I don't know much about their world. I told them what I do as a privacy commissioner and about privacy by design. I was interested. They emailed back right away. It was just wonderful. And they said, we didn't know your world existed, because they were saying that we should have a new framework for looking at privacy. And I just felt that they didn't know about my world, that we have a framework in place. So I contacted them, they contacted me back and said, we didn't know about your world. We didn't know there's privacy commissioners, and we've got these laws, and now you've got this thing called privacy by design. He said, will you come and talk to us, and will you do a monthly blog to inform our membership of the kind of concerns you have? Because we obviously have those concerns, but we don't know how it's reflected in what you do. So I did that for about a year, and it was wonderful, forging a really good relationship with these data scientists who are just brilliant and amazing, and can yield amazing predictive analytics. But I was emphasizing to them how important it was that if they had personally identifiable data, they had to protect the data. They had to find ways, and we'll talk about that near the end of the talk, about de-identifying the data, encrypting the data, doing something to prevent the identifiability of the data. I said, the harm from a privacy perspective starts and ends with the identifiability of the data. If you remove personal identifiers from data, and there's no ability to engage in data linkage, privacy laws no longer apply. Privacy laws only apply when it's about what's called personal information, which is personally identifiable data. As soon as they got that, it just sent them in a different direction. Because often at the beginning, it's not that hard to get rid of the identifiers. no one had ever told them this was a good idea. So just getting the message out increasingly makes such a difference. And again, I say this respectfully in terms of their area, because, what do I know about adding data analytics? I would know just as little about their field as they knew about my field. So I try to be very respectful and approach them in this way that will hopefully give them an understanding of why it's important. In the next slide, another leading professor, Alex Penton, often called Sandy Pentland at MIT, he proposed a new deal on data, calling for individuals to own their own data and control how it's used and distributed. Again, Sandy Pentland has done tons of work on big data. He's world-renowned and now calling for the importance of being able to control the data. In the next slide, Professor Steve Spiegelhalter from Cambridge University. The reason I love this is when I was in university many years ago and I was doing my graduate work, it was all about statistical analysis and the experimental design use and the statistical tests you had to use to make sure that the small data sets you had could be applicable in a broader context. So Professor Spiegelhalter says there's a lot of small data problems that can occur with big data. They don't disappear because you've got lots of stuff. They get worse. So I love that because what he was saying was don't just dismiss the previous statistical testing and experimental design theses that were essential to what we did. Incorporate them into what we're doing. And just last week, and that's why I don't have them in the slides, there were 2 other amazing articles that appeared, and I'm just going to read you a little bit from one of them. This was in Forbes magazine, and it was just wonderful. Big data overload, why most companies can't deal with the data explosion. And it was all about companies becoming data rich but insight poor. And I would suggest to you the same would apply to government. They accumulate vast stores of data, but they have no idea what to do with it, and no hope of learning anything useful from it. And to add to the problem, a lot of data has a lifespan. It becomes no longer relevant. Please pay attention to this in terms of the importance of destroying the data after it's served its purpose. Often, data is held onto anyway in the mistaken belief that someday it might become useful. And that's, from a privacy perspective, the exact opposite happens. It becomes harmful because then it can be used for purposes that were never intended. The accuracy often disappears from the data, and there's no point to keeping it. Data itself becomes a white elephant, expensive and useless, and I would say harmful. So that's from Forbes of last week. One other thing I want to mention to you about data analytics, and I hope you've seen that I'm a fan of data analytics and big data, but I want to remember positive sum, not zero sum. I want big data and big privacy. I want you to do both, and we can do both. Data analytics, in the traditional way, yields correlations. And sometimes it can be invaluable correlations. But correlations don't point to causality. So you can have A highly correlated with B. Anytime you have A, you have B. But A and B may both be caused by C, as opposed to A causing B, or the reverse. And these are the old lessons that we've learned that Professor Spiegelhalter was referring to. That is so important. And those kind of predictive analysis, they don't yield context. In the next slide, as I often talk about context is key. And informing data analytics on context-free data can only yield correlations, which of course at times can be spurious. If we add context as a feature in the data analytics, we may be able to impute causality. And this would have the potential to be invaluable in our analyses. The possibility of imputing causality through the introduction of some notion of context. You're going to see more and more about this in areas such as smart data that are just beginning to come out.